Welcome to another episode of Books and Beers. We have another special one today. We have another guest. Hi Falcon, how are you?
Good, I'm good.
Who's our guest today?
Well, let her introduce herself. Well, her name is Margarita. So, hello Margarita, how are
Hi
you?
Margarita.
Hi.
Welcome to the program. So, you want a beer?
Yes, I would like
Alright,
one.
perfect. Here you go.
Margarita, before we start, I have to mention something.
Mm-hmm.
When you told me you were on your way, you mentioned that you were wearing sweatpants.
Oh.
And I didn't get the reference, so I wanted you to explain what the reference was for the people watching.
For people that are in el tercer piso, you know, for like me, old, Seinfeld pants, I'm wearing George Costanza's face on my
Love
legs to inspire me, you know, to...
And then you said that so prepare yourselves mentally and emotionally.
And I also forgot to say spiritually.
And
spiritually as well.
I saw the clip and I died, by the way, because it relates to us and to a bunch of our friends. Because in March I had a heartbreak and I would wear sweatpants like for a month straight.
Classic.
And like in the clip, I think the guy says like you wear sweatpants when you don't know what you're doing with your life and you're lost or whatever.
When you've given up.
When you've given up.
Yeah.
And I don't know what happened in 2021, but it happened to me. It happened to Falcon.
Yeah. It
It happened to like 80% of our group of friends, and it's happening to my closest friend right now in New York.
That he's given up? Or she's given up?
Well, yeah, he had a heartbreak. He's going through a heartbreak.
So, he's just wearing sweatpants.
So in 2021, girls and guys, I don't know if it happened to you or.
But besides that, you were telling us that you're a big fan of the Hangover episode and that right now you might or might not be hangover. So, how are you feeling besides that?
Well, now I'm feeling better
Now you're
because I'm
feeling
chatting
better.
with you guys.
Exactly. No, and following Barney's advice, you have to have a beer
Yeah.
to cure the hangover because you have the withdrawal. So that's
And I already went through all the other steps too.
Awesome.
The Gatorade, the shower.
loyal supporter. I love it. All right. So usually when we have a guest, we ask them. So like, if you had to introduce yourself to the people watching, the thousands of people watching,
Millions.
what would you say? So what do you think?
So I have 3 personality traits. My name is Margarita. I am Mexican, so born in Mexico City. I am an avid reader, so one of the reasons I like to watch your podcast is
Awesome.
because I
Thank
love
you.
book recommendations. I read 1 book per week last year, which I'm not able to keep up with this year.
That was crazy.
And I love just being active, being outdoors. I love nature. I'm an environmental scientist by profession. So
Oh, wow.
I think those are my 3 personality traits.
I actually didn't know that.
Really?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, what do you do for a living?
It looks like I don't work because I love posting on Instagram all day long. But I work for a corporation. I do their sustainability planning, a lot of their strategy. Their regulatory compliance in all of North America. I used to work for the city of Miami Beach, doing all of their like beach management, waterway, like water quality, making sure that the environment's clean and that it's in good health. So.
And how did you get into like obviously like as a 16-year-old, like I would have never thought like, oh, I want to do sustainability when I'm older. How did you get into like that field or like to study that?
A fluke, man.
Really?
I've been
Random?
so lucky.
Really?
Yeah, it was a fluke. I went snorkeling in the Yucatan Peninsula when I was maybe like 10 years old, and I remember just seeing like trumpet fish and just like so much life underwater, and I was like, I want to do this for a living.
Wow.
So I studied marine biology. But of course, the higher up in your career you go, the less you actually get to spend time underwater. I've spent 0 time underwater recently for work. But that's, I kept finding opportunities to use that knowledge. And now I'm sitting at a desk in a corporation doing absolutely nothing marine biology related. But I like it. No, I love it's my passion, so it's nice to work.
We had similar like emotional connections when we chose accounting and finance for our degrees in college, and we also had something like that we went underwater.
We had a message I wanted to share with the
this is
people.
what we want to do.
Your parents had you doing like taxes and doing the budget.
I'm the tax guy in the family in the family for sure.
That's awesome. So you did sustainability for undergrad, and then you did a master's, right?
Yeah, I did a marine affairs and policies, so it's like more like law and application of the science as undergrad, and then I did master's in the same exact thing.
Do you ever, because you went to UM, right?
Yeah.
For both, so do you ever go to the campus like right in the entrance of Key Biscayne?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's the best.
Really cool.
There's a campus on the end.
Yeah, like right before
Oh.
the second bridge.
Oh, I haven't
There's like
seen
the
it.
big campus. Yeah.
It was
Are
really
you on
hard.
campus? Oh wow! I know
Yeah.
that there's a school that's like like known for like marine biology. What's it, MAST? Or
Yeah, well, master, the school in Key like a high school.
It's like known for like teaching like marine biology and like having programs in that field.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that UM had a campus.
Yeah, it's literally right down the street from MAST.
And it's a great, it's like a great school for that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's what you do. I was definitely wondering what was your day-to-day life with work.
Nobody thinks I have a job. Everybody thinks that all I do is Instagram.
Because it's funny because
$0.
it's funny because we know we feel like we know you because, as you mentioned, you're very active on social media, and you were one of the first followers of Books and Beers, one of the first fans. And we want to ask you, how did you hear of Books and Beers? Because obviously, like, our first followers were mostly like close friends and family. Yeah. How did you hear about Books and Beers?
Through the family connection. So I'm friends with Alfredo because I work with a lot of engineers as part of my job. And so he told me, he's like, oh, you love books. My brother's starting this podcast with a friend. You need to listen to it. And so I've been following. And it was funny because a lot of the books that you guys pick are books that I really struggle with. Really? Like, really struggle. I think one of you guys loves Sapiens. Maybe both of you love Sapiens. And
I remember you commented.
I read like the first couple of chapters and then I gave it away to somebody. I was like, here, you'll really love this book.
You're more of a fiction person, no?
I do. I like nonfiction, but it's more like in the behavioral sciences. So I'm a words person, not a numbers person. So that's why it's so nice to watch a lot of what you guys are explaining because you guys read the books for me, and then I just get the Cliff Notes version, and then I can just move on with the practical.
No, we do the same with you because we do want to get more into fiction because that's always something that we always get. Yeah. And we struggle, and like Barney right now, he's reading the autobiography of Warren Buffett, and I'm reading 100 Years of Solitude. And what he was telling me the other day, he was like, "Oh, this is like way too long." And the issue is that we got so used to nonfiction that every single time we're reading a book, if we read 2 lines and it doesn't have something to learn from, we struggle with it. We're like, "Wow, like what is this?" Yeah. So that's why we want to get more into fiction.
100 Years of Solitude took me 100 years to finish. It was so long, but let me tell you, once you get to the end, I hated it up until literally the last 10 pages, and then as I finished, I was like, "This is one of the best books I've ever read."
Wow.
What are your thoughts?
But I mean, you gotta get to
one of the reasons
he's taking like 2 months already.
No. It's gonna take me at the rate that I'm going right now. It's gonna take me what you said. It's gonna probably take me 100 years to finish. But one of the reasons I kept going is because from what you told me, something similar to that the ending is good. And I know if I put the book down, I'm not gonna pick it up ever again. Yeah. And I have to push through. The issue is that I don't know if this happens to you for us that we read usually. Well, I read usually at night. If I have a book that I'm not hooked to, I end up just looking at stupid things in my phone instead of reading it. Yeah. And that's what happens. That's why like it takes me like a minute to pick up the book. And then there's so many characters. It's insane. Like it's one of those books that I need to have a flashcard to just be writing down the notes. But what I was telling Barney is that even though I kind of hate it because it's hard to understand, I got the other day that for a second the book separates me from my daily life. And I get into this crazy story of like brothers hooking up with sisters and cousins and like crazy realities and like eating all these weird things, which is what the book's about. And that's what I kind of like. It sort of, even though I hate it, it kind of separates me from like the day to day and just gets me into this crazy, bizarre story.
That's not your reality.
Not my reality. No, the book is insane. The book is insane. It's a lot of incest, a lot of people like eating weird things. It's magical realism. I think it's what it's called. It's like like normal things, but it has like this weird magic incorporated into
I remember when you asked me about it, I remember that I read it for my Spanish class, and you told me like, oh, so what's it about? And I couldn't tell him. Because the excerpts were so like weird that I remember like I would read it and like whatever, take the test and forget about it because I didn't know what it was about. Yeah. So I had to read it too. I honestly I commend you. I give you props because it's hard. I'm sure it's super hard.
I'm 150 pages in. It's like 500 pages. So
especially for you, Margarita. If you read 52 books in a year and you struggle with that book, that's.
And you know what? It feels like I love reading, but a part of me wants to keep a specific pace and like alternate the types of books that I'm reading. I don't want to just be reading one perspective. Yeah. So when a book takes me a long time, I start to get really flustered and I almost get very impatient in the way that I read. And then I end up reading the same page over and over again and like not absorbing it. Same. And it slows me down so much more. But I think the problem with 100 Years of Solitude is it literally you do not connect the dots until the last 10 pages, which is what makes it so difficult to get through.
And they get into a lot of details for random things, and they're like really important points that you just mention, like, oh yeah, this happened. You're like,
yeah.
what?
Yeah. And so, the names being the same is really hard too. But are you reading it in English or in Spanish?
In Spanish.
Yeah, see, in Spanish it's so much harder too.
Oh, every book in Spanish is harder now.
Yeah.
Why? Because in English they use
the translations makes it easier for people.
And it's there's a lot of colloquialisms because it's in Colombian Spanish. So for me as a Mexican person, I kept having to stop and be like, what does this mean? And it's a very period-driven language too. So there's like, they'll mention some device that I'm like, I have no idea what this is. And so I would have to Google every third word, which only made it,
Right. No, yeah, same thing happened to me in Pulp Fiction. Like I don't know if you've seen the movie, but I wasn't a big fan at first because the first like hour and a half is like random stuff happening, and then at the end everything comes together and you kind of get what everything was for.
Yeah.
But I can see how.
Yeah, I had to stop with Pulp Fiction. Like,
you'll get it, bro. You'll get it.
Hopefully you'll get it. So how long ago did you read 100 Years of Solitude?
I finished it within the last 2 months, so it's fairly recently. And the book that I have actually has like a little. Like not an org chart, but it connects the dots of who's who, and even with that, I still had no idea what character.
A family tree, probably. About.
Yeah, that's what I want. A family tree. An org chart. You can tell I'm in corporate
America.
And how long have you been reading? Like, because we've been reading for a year, a year.
1 year.
1 year, yeah.
1 year.
Reading like.
Well, no, like for fun. Like reading books. I'd say like a year and a half.
Like quarantine happened, and that's when we switched. We're like, all right, we're gonna be readers now.
How long have you been reading for, like, as a hobby?
Forever. I mean,
really?
When I was we were talking earlier about, when I moved here from Mexico City, and I just remember it was a very hard transition for me overall, just like socially, culturally, there was a lot of differences. And so for me, going to the library and picking out a book and reading, like whether it was a public library or my school library, I always picked up books. The most awkward part, I think, for me was transitioning from, I used to go to the young adult section, and there was a period of time where I was for sure no longer a young adult, still trolling through the young adult section. So like I really expanded the breadth of what I'm reading recently, like within the last 5 years. But I've always been a reader. So
would you say that your specialty is like young adult novels and stuff like that?
I love escapism through reading. So I love reading like romance stories. I mean, anything, like you were saying, anything that kind of takes me out of my day-to-day life and gives it, I'm very dramatic, so I love me a good story that makes me feel like I'm dealing with something when I'm actually not dealing with any problems. I guess it's not so much young adult books, but I do like a good fiction story, and I love a really good narrative. So I pull a lot of good quotes from books that I read. Like right now I'm reading a book by Sally Rooney called Beautiful World, Where Are You? I always want to say where art thou? Where are you? And she just has like really quippy observations about the human experience, and I love it. I mean, I created like a whole Instagram video reading out of the book because I love the dialogue.
Do you take notes while you read or highlight or do anything?
No, but some people hate that I do this, but I do like doggy ear the corner of pages where I like a quote.
So your book would have a bunch of doggy ears.
Yeah, like this one, every other page I doggy ear.
But I mean, you don't keep all the books that you read, right? Like you kind of give them away. Maybe I don't think throw them away, but like just give them away. Like you just keep the ones that you really really like. Is that what happens?
Yeah. So my problem is I like a hard. Like I like the book. I like to hold it in my hands. Yeah. I have a Kindle and it's been off for like at least 10 years. And I used to read it. And honestly, with the Kindle, I would read like trash because it was so easy to just download random books, and I was reading like books that I would not want to admit that I was reading. Yeah. So I like buying the actual copy of the book. And I mean, people that know me, I have like all of these books on my windowsill. And at some point last year, I started running out of space. Like one day somebody's going to find me buried underneath books in my apartment. And so when I finish for the year, I will keep them. And then at the end of the year, because I like to see the progress that I've made. Yeah. And then at the end of the year, I'll give them away. Like if somebody, all of them? All of them.
Even your favorite book that you love?
No. Okay. No, that's a good clarification. So there's a handful of books that are like my all-time favorite books, and those I keep.
Yeah, because I couldn't imagine like giving away like some of our favorite books, like Halloween Friends, Random Walk, because we have like notes, highlights, and that'd be crazy.
A few of them are signed. And 52 books in a year. I know you don't do that anymore, but you still read a lot.
That's insane.
One of the big questions that we want to ask you was, when do you read? Like, how do you? What's the usual time of the day that you read books? Like,
how did you accomplish that?
Yeah, how do you accomplish that?
Well, the pandemic really helped, but I'm not a morning person.
Okay.
The way that I start every single day is I make a massive pot of coffee and I will drink coffee for at least an hour and read, always, every morning. It's like my sacred time. And
before
the people,
work?
Yeah,
Okay.
the people
so
that
from like
work
8
with
and 9
me-
a.m.
Yeah, actually, I was going to say that sounds really late, but no, it's from 8 to 9 a.m. Yeah, every morning for an hour, I will put my phone on Do Not Disturb and I read for 1 hour. And then I'm like you, at night to unwind, I'll read. I always carry a book with me in a purse because if for some reason I end up having to wait, like at a doctor's office or somewhere, it gives me time to read. And if I'm really hooked in a book, sometimes, like especially now that I'm working from home, I will pop open a book whenever I feel inspired throughout the day. Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah, like for me, I try to read, but I get distracted. I always get distracted, and we had goals this year of like reading 25 and 20 books, and I have like 12 books, and Falcon's like 6, 7.
4, yeah.
It's been hard because there's a lot of things like going on like professionally, personally with the podcast, and it's just hard to balance everything.
Yeah.
And do you watch any shows or is it just reading? Because for me, like at night, that's why like at night. What I want to do to like unwind is like watch like Netflix or YouTube or like, you know, watch something that I can just fall asleep watching.
Yeah, no, it's nice to turn off your brain every once in a while. And I guess I do go through phases. I don't typically, like if I'm really into reading, I usually will finish work and then I'll keep reading. But there are times that I'll binge watch shows and I'll commit to it for like literally like a week. Let's say I'll watch every single season of a show
and then you drop
and I'll obviously my reading rate goes down during those periods, but then I'll go back to reading.
That's why fiction is so important, because if we like reading a lot about personal finance and we both kind of work in that area, we're studying for it. So if you're working in that and then you're studying for an exam about that, if you get a 9 and you're gonna open a book about finance, you're gonna
you never turn your brain
off. Yeah, you never turn your brain off. So that's why it's so important. And I also try to incorporate so much like a fiction book. So I read like The Alchemist was one that I read recently, which you probably read, which is like a classic. Have you read the ones about John Grisham, which is kind of like a basic, but that's the first book I read.
Yeah.
The Firm.
My dad loves that type of book, and he always gives me books. He hasn't given me one in a while, but I have a John Grisham somewhere in my read books from last year. I don't remember which one it was. Because to me, they're all so similar.
They're all super similar. Yeah. Like he's a great author.
Yeah.
And Margarita, what was the longest book you read last year? Would you say, was it more than 400 pages?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I've read a couple that have been 400, like in the 450 range. I can't remember if I read it last year, but A Little Life is a really, really good book. It's one of the ones that I kept.
Okay.
Also an observation on the human experience and growth. It follows like a group of friends over I think it's decades. My sister gave it to me, and that one's quite thick. I read a couple of Ayn Rand books too. I feel like those are always really long.
I heard good things about those, like about Ayn Rand.
I mean, it's a very polarizing author. She's got some really radical ideas, but I find I love reading. Like, I don't like to commit to just one perspective. That's why I love reading all different types of authors. I like reading what people criticize as like chick lit, and I like reading serious books because I feel like everything offers you like a different view on life and a different perspective. And to me, I mean, even if it's just a story that seems to not be teaching you something, I feel like I'm always learning something. I read to like glean these little nuggets of information and perspective in life.
I have a friend that loves philosophy, and he told me that one of the things he loves about fiction is that because I've had this talk with him, and he tells me that fiction also teaches you like something. You mentioned human experience, like seeing like how humans interact, like different vices, different things, and seeing people grow, and that's something that fiction that we have to check out. A Little Life you mentioned, right?
Yeah, A Little Life. It's the author's name, I forget what it is, but it's called A Little Life.
Well, all the books that you mentioned are gonna be right here, so like, don't worry. Like, we'll put them all right there in post editing. It's crazy how a lot of the things you say, obviously you read much more than we do, but I can relate. I know because I talk with Barney a lot. We can relate about so many things that you're saying. That if talk about how you change types of book every single time you finish a book, you can try to read something different. We do that all the time. How you're reading to kind of separate. So I guess my point here is like, as you read more, you kind of get into this part of the population, kind of start seeing the things the same way. which is crazy. But one other thing that I remember that my brother told me about you, and I think I saw in one of your posts, is that last year, maybe 2 years ago, you read How to Win Friends, which is our favorite book ever. Like, that's our favorite, like, channel book. And you read a chapter a week for the entire year.
Yeah.
Was that last year?
I applied. That was, I think it was like 3 years ago. I read the book, and then I applied a chapter a day, or a chapter a week. And I wrote about it, actually, because there was a period of time, it actually coincided with a period of time when I was going through a pretty massive career jump. Okay. I was put into like a director level position, which was like, I went from managing like 2 people to managing like 12 plus people, multiple different divisions. And it was I was very grateful for the opportunity, but it was for sure like a pretty big leap that wouldn't have happened organically. And so I felt like I wanted something to kind of tether me down, to like remind me what are like some true like networking, management, people, like people management type of skills. And I wanted to force myself to apply it so that I was consciously like trying to do my best job, like from an academic perspective. I don't know if that makes sense.
Did you feel like you were kind of manipulating people from the outside, since you had so much knowledge about the social like skills and interactions?
I talked about that, I think, in one of because I wrote a blog post about each like week, how it went. And one of the observations that I had is that it did feel manipulative in a sense, because there was the one where you have to give like praise. And I felt like I mean, it was organic. Like, I wouldn't say something if I didn't feel it, but because I knew I was applying a tactic, I was like, oh, this kind of feels like sleazy. You know?
Like, you wouldn't have done that if you hadn't read the book.
Yeah, exactly.
And what was your review? Did you see like changes throughout the year? Did you see like your relationships or whatever, your management style improve throughout the year? Yeah,
for sure. But the only thing that I still cannot apply from the Dale Carnegie school of just in general networking
disagreements,
remembering people's names, remembering details about them. I still have to like write them down. Like, if I meet people, I'll write them down like in their contact information, like in the notes. I'll be like, this person has kids, like this person has, because they teach you so many different tools. None of them, like, they make it worse for me when they're like, oh,
mention their name 3 times.
Yeah, or like imagine a house and like a racket and whatever, and it's supposed to remind you that you ask them where people live and what kind of sports they play. But like remembering even the tool is really challenging for me. So even like then applying it is so much worse.
For me, it's weird because I can have a conversation with someone and remember what they're wearing, what we talked about, everything except the name. So
really?
It's crazy.
I actually didn't know that you're bad with names.
I can like, there's so many people I can literally tell them what they were wearing the first night we met and like the entire conversation, but forget the name.
But I think that one's super important because, like, personally, I feel when people remember my name, like, it tells you something.
The name is the nicest sound
thing you can hear. Is like now when I remember in New York, I went to Chick-fil-A. Like wherever I go, I read the name tag and I say their name. Because honestly, it's I think that's one of the best tactics. That one and the one that's like when you're disagreeing with someone. Let's say you're telling me that computer is black and I know it's gray. You just don't keep following the disagreement because you're not gonna win anything. If you win the disagreement, all I'm gonna get is that you are resentful towards me for discussing that and trying to prove you wrong. So that one was big for me too. And
that's the one that when we see people that go against that teaching, that's when we feel like we're manipulating people, because you kind of say, look, I know how this is gonna end because you're arguing. I know that if I apply this, I'm gonna get in a better place. So that's why we always say that we feel like we're kind of manipulating people in that sense.
It does feel like that a little bit, but I mean, it completely changed the way that I relate to people, the way that I kind of think about people. Like you mentioned it, and I watch so many people get into arguments and it's not fruitful. And somebody asked me, like, what is your magic? Like, what is the one thing that you feel that you bring into a professional setting that other people don't? And a lot of it is not conflict resolution so much as consensus building, applying a lot of the tactics from Dale Carnegie. And you have no idea how useful it has been for me. I mean, because I come from a scientist background, but I work with engineers, I work with operators, I work with sometimes government officials. And so every person's coming at a discussion or whatever from a different angle. And I think Dale Carnegie made me realize, like the teachings of Dale Carnegie made me realize like how to put myself in each person's shoes to say, okay, how do we build the best resolution for everybody, not just for me, not just for you. So that perspective is really helpful. And honestly, reading also helps to realize like people see the world so differently from you.
Everyone has a different perspective.
Yeah.
And we had a joke that every time, like, Falcon loves to I don't want to put you like in a bad position, but you love to like argue, like you love,
yeah.
or at least before.
I used to be like that.
And exactly, he used to be like that. And once we read that, like every time he got in a stupid argument, I would say how to win. Like it became a joke.
Each other,
I would say how to win friends, like as a joke. And he'd get it instantly, and he changed the topic. Like it was crazy because you see the change of like a person. Falcon used to be like super like confrontational, super, and after like a while, like, and obviously me like remembering him like, oh, how to win friends, how to win friends, how to win friends. Now he's completely changed. He doesn't do
or when like neither of us are arguing, but we see people that start arguing, we just look at each other and just go, how to win friends.
Complete nerd move. We just look at each other.
No, but every time I finish the book, I always say like, did this book change my life or did it not? How to Win Friends is the biggest one that has like completely changed my life. Like the 4 Agreements is another one. There's like a big one that changed my life, but like How to Win Friends is just.
Margarita, I have a question that might not apply to fiction, to the books you read. Mm-hmm. I realized now that I'm reading like a 700-page book with the Warren Buffett biography.
Oh my God, it's 700 pages.
That's what I wanted to ask you this because like I haven't, like I'm more of a 300, 400 page like reader. Yeah. This is my first like big like project. Yeah. 700 pages. And I texted Falcon the other day that, especially for an autobiography, I feel like 700 pages is too much. But this one
is not even an autobiography, which I think it makes it worse.
It's written by a person outside, but it has a lot of comments from Warren Buffett. But I told him like after 300-400 pages, it's like repetitive. It gets into small details. And I came to the conclusion that a book that's longer than 600, 700 pages, if it's nonfiction at least, it's just too much. It gets repetitive. It loses me. I don't know if it's the same for fiction. If I want to hear your thoughts about it. Because I know there's books that are 1,000 pages long. And
I don't think it has to do with the length of the book. Because I'm part of a book club and we were reading a book that I'm sure everybody in my book club would agree with. It was so detailed. It's I forget, it's like What's Left of Me Is Yours or something like that. Okay. It's about a Japanese story. But they would describe like the thread on the couch and everybody was like, I hate that book. Yeah. Because that book was maybe like 200 some pages.
Oh, okay.
And so I think
it's a details then.
I mean I agree with you on a biography. It seems very self-indulgent. I mean Warren Buffett's Warren Buffett, but like, really how many pages do you really need?
Yeah. It was written by another person, and I think it's what you say about the details because it's like one chapter would be, so Warren Buffett met this person. She was the head of the Washington Post, and then the whole chapter would be about her. Mm-hmm. And I picked up the book to read about Warren Buffett. Yeah, like it's hard that you explain who she is, whatever. But like her story, her husband, how he died, how she came out, how she became CEO. Like it became a biography of her, and like those details, like small details, like I think that's the.
But then the person that's writing the book, it's like besides telling my story, I kind of want to praise the people around me, so that's why I feel like Warren Buffett wrote up like that entire chapter about that person, which is, well, you being the reader, you're like, I don't think this is that interesting. Yeah. One thing that I also wanted to ask you is besides books, we know because we follow your Instagram, and if we can, we'll put it here. But we know that you're also really into bikinis, and you kind of merged the two. So how did that come into play?
Well, during the pandemic, I mean, I think that everybody was indoors, and I'm an outdoor person, and I think everybody kind of felt it. I'm speaking on behalf of the entire human race at this point, but I was just so desperate to be outside. Yeah. And so, I mean, living here in Florida, the weather was always beautiful. The only little piece of outdoors that I had any license to was my balcony. And so I just put on a bikini to make me feel like I was going out to the water, like hanging out by the pool and reading. And it just felt like, you know, they say sex sells, and I hate to be this, but I was like, you know, how do you get people interested in wanting to read? And it just seemed like such a natural partnership between bikinis and books. So I didn't necessarily do it because I wanted to sell anything. Like I'm I guess selling reading. But I spent so much time in my bathing suit, and like it just happened organically.
Yeah, it was like a cool way to share.
Yeah, and people responded to it. Like the other day, we had a new member join our book club, and she's like, "Oh, you're that chick with the bikinis and the books." I was like, "Oh God."
That's the best feeling, by the way. That's happened to us.
I was like, yesterday, like this friend that I haven't like talked to much since we graduated high school, he came up to me, he was like, "Yeah, dude, I watched the entire episode with your brother," and I was like, "What are the odds?" And I texted Barney, I was like, "Bro, like this just happened to me." But yeah, no, that's awesome. So you've been doing that for a year?
Yeah, I've been doing that for a year. I haven't been doing it consistently because I think now it's a lot harder. Like most times I'm wearing bikinis still all the time, but like most times when I'm wearing a bikini now, I'm like out on my paddleboard or I'm out at the beach, and it takes concerted effort to now be carrying books around and trying to like pose with it.
To take a pose.
And most of my photos, nobody knows this, like in general on all of, I have many Instagram accounts, on most of them, they're all self-portraits. So it's very challenging to like...
So like you time him?
Yeah, I do like timer, and I've got like at this point I've got an art of like placing my phone on like a tree branch so that I can take a photo.
That's what I was going to tell you, because they look like as if someone's taking the photo.
Yeah, and they come out, actually I do much better posing when I don't have a person holding the camera, because I get so awkward. Like, you know, like somebody's taking your photo, I'm like, you don't know what to do. They're watching me pose. So so they're all self-timers, so I haven't really been posing. Like I wanted to take a picture with the book that I'm reading now because I love it so much. And I tried to match the book to the bikini that I'm wearing. Like recently, it didn't start out like that.
Like the color, or
like color, or like some sort of like
connection.
Theme. Yeah,
we try to do that with the beers, but
yeah, exactly. It's like it's fun to add a theme to it, and it also gives me an excuse to buy more bikinis. Cause I'm like, I need new bikinis to match with my book. So it's been a fun project. I don't post in it that often, but I want to keep up with it. I mean, it's where I share what I'm reading and whether I'm liking it or not.
Did you ever get like a sponsor? I don't know if you can say it, but a sponsorship deal from like any big local Miami bikini makers, or? I
mean, I get like spam of people being like, "We want you to be our ambassador," but like I haven't really pursued it. I used to have a blog about Miami a long time ago, and I used to get like a sponsorships. Yeah, I lost.
How's that? Because we were sort of thinking of maybe starting like a blog, especially with our friends that are kind of down. Like, do you recommend it?
Yeah, I loved it. I personally loved it. I think so. You need to know like who's your audience and are they going to respond to a website, because I think a lot of blogs, like the actual written content, just kind of like nobody reads anymore. They want videos, they want photos, they want something paunchy and that they can look at in a few moments. And so I did it for the love of writing. I would write stories about like what it's like to live in Miami that were very tongue-in-cheek. And then I lost my website because I don't know, it's like lost somewhere in the internets, and I haven't been able to retrieve it. But I think it's fantastic. I think you should do it if if you're interested in sharing something. Just don't open it on Blogspot or whatever. Okay. The Google one is the worst one. That's why I might
spend some money into it so you can build a good
infrastructure. How you tried doing it through Instagram? Like maybe take a picture and like just write a post.
Yeah, I needed like a little break from it because I was blogging, so I had a professional website too, which is where I was doing the Dale Carnegie thing, and I was blogging about like more work type stuff. And that one I did through WordPress, and WordPress is actually a great platform. And so like that was still enjoyable, but I kind of writing takes a lot of time, and so I either read or I write, and right now I'm in a reading phase.
You're in a reading phase?
Yeah.
And how did the blogs work? Like you post a vlog and then people will comment and then you reply to them, and it's just like a constant.
Yeah, and I would just like post about it like on my socials. I'd be like, oh, I just did a blog post.
Go check
it out. There was some really good stories. So like one time our team at the city, when I used to work there, we took like a retreat to California, and we went to the Lost Coast, which is like 7 hours northwest of San Francisco, and it's like remote. It's like this trail that's on the beach, and there's bears, and like part of it's underwater, like miles of it are underwater if you go at the wrong tide, and like people die all the time. And there was this awesome, well, not awesome, but there's this crazy sign that said like dangers, lives lost here. And so I took a photo of that, and I told like a whole story of our trip, basically like nearly dying on the Lost Coast. Like it's so much fun to tell stories like that.
I feel like we have to start.
I really want to start. Like I have one blog that I already wrote. One day, like I was here, it was a Saturday, I was bored, and I had it thinking in my mind for a little bit, and I wrote about it. And I was like, maybe we'll release this, maybe we won't, but who knows?
I've tried in LinkedIn. I've thought about it. LinkedIn, on Instagram too, like writing different stuff.
That's a great question. So Barney, and obviously me too, but Barney had the idea of kind of incorporating like books and beers into our professional lives, and maybe every time you finish a book, writing a little vlog on LinkedIn. What I told him is
two paragraphs.
Yeah, 2 paragraphs. What I told him is, if you do that, you're kind of opening the gates of books and beers. And I've been working for a year already, and like no one at work knows that I do books and beers. Yeah, they find it through YouTube and they're watching it right now. What's up? But no one really does, because
think you're not supposed to in our firms, no?
It's kind of that you're not supposed to. And if you do, my struggle with me is we release videos on Wednesdays. So on Tuesdays, maybe I'm finishing work kind of quick, like at 5 p.m. so I can edit until 2 a.m. If they know that I'm finishing at 5 because I'm gonna go edit a video, they're gonna be like, oh, what's up? But if they don't, they're not gonna ask you questions because your personal life is your personal life. So I guess my question to you is, have you like do people at work kind of know like all the things that you do in social media and the vlogs that you write and all that stuff?
Yeah, that's actually a great question because I struggled with that when I was doing my Miami blog and when I was working for the city, because I think for government officials in particular, I mean, you're somewhat of a public persona within your community, and I struggled a lot with making sure that whatever content I was writing about did not get into like a political arena, because my job at the city was very politically driven, I guess. And so I really struggled with, I felt gagged in a sense. Like I felt it was frustrating to know that I couldn't really express myself fully. But I found a way to make it work. And for a while, people didn't know that I had the blog. But then after a while, I mean, like it was kind of hard because I would be going out or I'd be going to events or what have you. And people knew. I mean, I had it for like 10 years almost.
Wow.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden it just disappeared into the internet.
How do you try getting it back? Or?
I have, but I'm just not technologically adept. So I had somebody actually go into like whatever page, because I used to have like a vanity URL. It was Thank You Miami. So it was thank you. I used to own thankyoumiami.com, and then I let it expire, and so now I have no idea how to find it.
Oh, it expired.
The thing expired, and then the way the Blogspot works, like it has to connect. I don't know. Anyway, the point is I have no idea. Like I'm not technologically adept enough to pull it out of the internet, and it's
But
sad.
if you look for it, can we find it or not?
I don't think so. And then I also had a YouTube page, and I had like an email for it, and I deleted the email, and I realized that it deleted all of my YouTube videos.
Wow.
And it sucks because I put a lot of time into like some great content. and actually I used to do like very practical guides for like traveling places. I was like, oh, this city is like New Orleans. I thought New Orleans was very like Miami. Don't ask me how I thought that it was very like Miami. But I created like an entire blog post. I was like, New Orleans is like Miami, and I shared like where to go and what to see if you're a Miamian and you wanted to explore New Orleans. And now I have no way of accessing all of this. So I mean, it's a task for another day. I also bought cryptocurrency, and I don't know how to get access to it.
Oh, you lost your wallet?
Yeah, I have like anything that's like in the internet. It's not.
I remember you posted about NFTs recently.
Yeah,
I didn't know anything about NFTs.
And we were talking about that yesterday. Like all of that, like anything that's abstract. I'm a concrete person.
Me too.
I need to be able to like to understand it in like a practical sense. So like crypto, NFTs, they all sound the same to me. Blockchain. I'm the same way.
I'm actually a big crypto hater. But not because I have anything. Maybe crypto's the next big thing, but I'm like you. Like I like investing in things in concrete that have factories that we understand.
You guys are gonna kill me, but I am so old school that I invested in bonds. And I checked it like the other day, like not a lot. Like don't worry, I'm not going bankrupt. And I checked it the other day, and I was getting like negative rates of return.
Oh wow!
And I was like, because growing up, my parents were like, oh, like bonds, like that, like I bought you bonds. So finally, like when I started getting money and I was able to invest, I was like, oh, bonds sounds so prudent. Like I'm that old school. So for me, the concept of like cryptocurrency, I bought some like randomly on New Year's Eve one day because I had friends that actually made a lot of money through Bitcoin, and they taught me how to do it, but then they never taught me how to actually like see where my money is.
So you
like,
can access your wallet.
It felt like, I don't know if you guys have ever watched the South Park episode where like I guess Stan goes to like invest money in the bank, and the guy goes, and it's gone. And that's exactly how it felt. But the moment that I purchased it, it just like my money just disappeared.
That sucks.
It's somewhere with my blog floating around the World Wide Web.
Yeah, I mean, if we started the blog, we'll definitely help you to try to find the blog and also the cryptocurrencies. We're both a little bit of cryptocurrencies haters. But we have to do an episode about that, like with our
cryptocurrencies, our thoughts section, on cryptocurrency.
I won't change the topic too much, but you were talking about the blog about Miami, and you also have another social media page called Thank You Miami. So what's that about? Can you tell us a little about it?
So there was a period of time where I was so frustrated with living in Miami. I think like
that's me right now.
I was probably driving down like 395, any of the 95s, and all of a sudden like some guy almost crashed into me.
That's me right now, exactly me.
And it happens to to almost every Miamian. You pass through a phase where you're just like, okay, I love living here, because like you'll have moments like last night. I had a fantastic night where I was like, wow, what a great place we live in, and then you'll have a moment like that and you're like, what a terrible place we live in.
Doesn't it make you feel like you're back out in Mexico, and for us like back in Venezuela? That's what it makes me feel about. It's like I moved from like all this organized things, and I move here and people are acting the same way.
Yeah.
It's like, what is this?
Which is I think it's even worse in a sense in Miami, because it's a mixture of the worst of all of these other countries. I mean, also the best of all of these other countries in a sense, but
like us.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I think the whole premise of the blog is that everybody has a love-hate relationship with Miami. And I say everybody, obviously I'm generalizing, but I think the majority of Miamians go through like moments where they're like, wow, I can't believe I get to live this. And then it's like, wow, I can't believe I have to live this.
I think Falcon's in the latter phase right now.
Everything you're saying right now, I'm 100%.
Falcon's going to New York next week, and he always says like, oh, I want to move here.
No, you can't leave me. Like, we're already down.
I think I'm really aiming to hopefully move in a few years. Just spend some time there and obviously come back. Like Miami is a place to be, but
I agree. By the way, I want to come back.
Yeah, we all kind of want to come back. But okay, sorry to interrupt you. So
So the premise of the blog was to be like, oh, the love-hate relationship of Miami, and I think the first post that I ever had a photo of a woman. And I used to live on Ocean Drive, and a woman like on like a Ferrari or something, like basically twerking on the hood of the car.
Twerking,
yeah, and like a man taking her photo, and I just like I posted that, and I was like, we all have a hate-love relationship with Miami, like kind of like thank you that I got to see this, but also really I have to see this, and it honestly was the one thing that kept me from moving out of Miami. It was
a girl twerking in a Ferrari.
Oh no. Yes, that's what kept me here. I need to be surrounded by that. No, but I think it's the idea, like I challenged myself to find the good within the bad, and then to commiserate about the bad stuff.
That's awesome. I really like that. I didn't know it went that deep. That's awesome. I'm gonna start reading it more, I guess, to hopefully get some better knowledge about.
Well, we have to find it first before we can read it. And I think the crazy part, and something to think about if you start your blog, is that over time, like for example, I would get invited to like restaurant previews, and I was sitting at tables with like 12 people that maybe I'd met before another preview, but like they're not my friends. Right. And after a while, it's like, really, like I'm here, I'm enjoying what should be a pleasurable experience, but I'm wasting my energy and time kind of like not actually enjoying Miami in the way that I was wanting to. So I felt like my blog for a while strayed really far, which is why I stopped doing it. I was like, I'd rather just go out to dinner with friends and pay for it than be sitting at a table with 12 people. I don't really want to.
And waste a night of your weekend or whatever.
Yeah, I think that like once your blog grows, which I'm sure you guys are kind of experiencing with your podcast, there's like all these different variables that then start weighing into like what content you talk about, how you like deliver the content, and for me, I ended up straying too far, and I was like, all right, let's put this to rest.
You lost the interest. Yeah. Margarita, if let's say Miami ends and you have to move somewhere, do you have like a place that you would like to live eventually, or is Miami, or you're a 305 lifer forever?
I think Miami will always be my headquarters. I for a moment I almost moved to Panama, like remote Panama, but I'm a person that needs to be surrounded by action and people and like newness, diversity, variety, and so for a while I was gonna move to like the countryside of not the countryside, it was like by the beach, but 5 hours from Panama City, and I almost like super close. I dated a surfer, and we loved going there, and I was like, oh, what a fun idea, like I went through like a phase of like, let's get out of the rat race, and I want to work remotely, and I want to go like live here, and I thought it was a cool idea, and then I was like, I'm gonna wake up every day and be bored, like miserable.
Yeah.
You know, like that's not for me. I live in South Beach. I live
you like
surrounded
the action.
by people. I'm like I go out. I love meeting new people, and I just like it's a small town of maybe like 50 people that I was gonna see every single day for the rest of my life. No. So I think like
Big change.
I think like I have a sister that lives in San Francisco. I couldn't live in San Francisco, but I think California is a state that I would enjoy just because you get easy access to different types of landscapes, nature, hiking, skiing, beach.
And the beach. I'm getting the vibe that you always like to be like close to the beach.
Yeah,
too.
that's one of the reasons why I studied marine biology actually, because I always wanted to be near the ocean.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I have one last question, and then at the end we'll ask you to rate the beer before we forget, because we always forget. Mm-hmm. But my question to you is like, what are the books you're reading now? What are your 3 favorite books? And one extra one is, if you had to recommend one book for someone that's going to start reading, what would it be?
Okay. Wait, go back.
Yeah. So if you had to recommend...
What you're reading now first.
But the book I'm reading now is Sally Rooney, Beautiful World, Where Are You? And I'm also reading... there's a new Steven Pinker book that just came out on rationality. So I kind of just peeked at it, but that's the next one that I'm reading. So that's those. My
best book. Top 3. Sorry.
My top 3 favorite books are When Breath Becomes Air, which is a story about a doctor that gets, I think, lung cancer or brain cancer or something. And
I've seen the cover. I think.
It's super thin, and that's actually the book that I would recommend for somebody that's just getting into reading.
Okay.
So I think it's practical. It's short. It's well written. It's I mean, it's a sad story, but it's a good book. A Little Life, and then I really like Atlas Shrugged. Don't hate me, people that don't like Ayn Rand. I really like Atlas Shrugged.
Nice.
I think we have to get into A Little Life.
Wait, yeah. When we do the one that you just recommended, we'll read it, and hopefully, like, we'll have you again for some sort of episode to do like a review of that book.
A review.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the beer? I know it's been hard with the hangover and everything, Margarita.
I didn't realize I drank so little.
From 1 to 5, what's your rating of this beer?
See, it's tried and true, so I gotta give it like a 4. Like a 4. Like I'm evaluating it from like, this is what's in my fridge. It's Mexican. It's easy to drink. It's friendly. It's a people pleaser.
Yeah.
It's a very versatile. I mean, and I'm not like a hoppy like microbrew type of person, so I gotta
Margarita, let me tell you, we've done 54 episodes, and that's the best beer review there's
definitely
ever been in this channel, because we suck at reviewing beers.
We suck at reviewing beers.
Our reviews are, this is a good beer, this is a 4, this is a bad beer, this is a 2.
This is one that would like to have more than one in the
with my friends, like that's the best review we've ever had in the channel. So
well, I gotta
congrats.
caveat it. I'm a tequila drinker, so don't take it with a grain of salt.
What's your go-to tequila?
I like Don Julio Blanco.
Okay.
I mean, again, I'm a commercial lady.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like the people's drinks, you know.
Have you tried Casamigos, the George
I have
Clooney
a
one?
vendetta against.
She hates Casamigos.
Yeah.
I have a vendetta because I feel like that's a tequila that people, particularly New Yorkers,
Okay.
Who come down to Miami, think it's like a status thing,
It's like
and it doesn't taste bad, but it doesn't taste as good as people make it seem.
What about Casa Azul? Because that's a status.
I like Casa Azul. I've liked. I'm more of like a Casa Dragones, like I don't know. I mean,
have you tried Doble Tequila?
I do like Doble.
That one's really good, right?
Yeah. That one's good. That one's the one you bought, no?
That one that I bought
good.
from the little
anything, honestly, anything. No offense, because I used to do like work with Jose Cuervo. Anything but Jose Cuervo or Patron.
Wow.
Jose Cuervo, Patron, Casamigos.
Those are the cheapest ones too.
Everything else, I'll take the Kendall Jenner tequila. I don't really care. Just not those 3.
We have a hate-love relationship with tequila. Like you do with Miami, we have it with tequila.
Well, this morning I have a love-hate relationship with tequila also.
All right, Margarita, any last words for our fans, our millions of fans?
Well, we'll ask you. We'll put all the social media that you feel comfortable putting. We'll put it here. But yeah, any last words that you want to share?
No, thank you for having me. I will put in a plug for we changed our name, but I'm part of a book club, and they're the best. I think they're part of the reason why I maintain momentum with reading.
Awesome.
We used to call ourselves the Boozy Book Club because it's a bunch of.
Oh, you changed your name?
Well, the Boozy Book Club handle wasn't available, so I think now we're the Booze and Books Club. But I will put a plug for them because the girl who started it, I mean, it's a group of us that kind of founded it, but this one girl who keeps it going, she puts so much work into it. We have like themed like gatherings with like food. Like the last book that we read was on like fishermen and like a family that owned a seafood restaurant, and not fishermen, a family that owned a seafood restaurant in like the coast of California, and we went to like a seafood restaurant here and had like similar. It was like a family-owned seafood restaurant where we met, and like they put so much effort into it. So
maybe you can join.
Yeah.
There's one man in the thing. You gotta there's like a pretty hefty application process, but yeah.
Because I kind of see a few of the books you guys reading completely different from what I read, so it'd be great to like expand.
They're very. Actually, there's one woman who is putting in a plug for a nonfiction book. She's like, we gotta read something other than all this fiction. So maybe you can come and skew us in that direction.
Hopefully,
Be the game changer in the club.
I'll look into it. That's awesome. But yeah, no, thank you so much for doing this. I'm happy. I mean, completely different guests. We've had too many people from my family as guests, and we had our friends. So I'm happy that we have like someone different
from the outside.
From the outside. And if you're watching this because Margarita's here, I encourage you to subscribe, like us, leave us a comment what you think and everything, and we'll be in touch for you. But yeah, thank you so much.